Those things I spend my free time doing. I will take a half-hour shower just to think about the next startup idea and then come out all pruned and not know where the time went. In fact, and like we're so young, we don't know exactly what we want. So how are you preparing yourself to be the smartest and most capable person you can be? And we were out alone in the woods together, meeting a bunch of strangers, having to eat for ourselves, cook for ourselves, hike around, exhausted day in, day out. Rain would come on us. I saw a grizzly bear once. That was pretty exciting and scary.
Welcome back, guys. This is Ebenezer.
This is Mohammed. Today on our episode, we have Conner Swenberg. Conner is a senior majoring in engineering physics.
Yeah, Conner is the current old wise Yoda and ex-president of AppDev. We'll dive a little bit more into that. He is interned at two Y Combinator startups, which is incredible in itself. One proxy and the other one response. And lastly, but not least, Conner is also a backpacking and dance enthusiast. Did we get that right, Conner?
Hey, everything looks good to me. One thing I'd add is like it's a bit sus. I usually get asked like why I study engineering physics when usually I do a lot more CS stuff in my free time. I guess that we'll talk about later, but I'm not minoring in CS. I just really like it, and it's kind of a thing that I don't know. It's a passion that I found on the side actually.
Just so people can get an idea of who you are before we start off talking about college and everything. Can you tell us a bit about who Conner before Cornell, before college is, where you're from, just the general background so people get to know you?
Yeah, definitely. So I grew up in the Bay Area, just above San Francisco, a place called Marin County. That's actually where I got probably a lot of my inspiration from backpacking from this. It's a lot of natural beauty out there. Muir Woods, if you've ever heard of it, it's out there. I was over there for the break with some friends actually. But because of that, I was kind of grew up around tech, not fully in the valley, but my father's been working in tech for a long time, and he kind of got me into my first steps of thinking more about engineering as a thing I would want to study in college, and specifically tech and entrepreneurship as a potential career path. And that's kind of what brought me to Cornell, and that's what brought me into, I guess, the interest I have today. And yeah.
That's awesome. When we were talking a couple of days ago, the backpacking story you told us was actually really awesome. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess one of the best trips I've had in my life is 28 days in Alaska. It's through a program called the National Outdoor Leadership School. Super thankful that my parents gave me the opportunity to go to that place. My mom recommended it, actually. Shout out to the mom. But it was 28 days straight backpacking in the Alaskan wilderness in a mountain range that I've never been before. None of us have been before, actually. And there were about a dozen or so of kids, really. Some high school graduates, some people just starting college. I was in my senior year going into high school, and we were out alone in the woods together, meeting a bunch of strangers, having to eat for ourselves, cook for ourselves, hike around, exhausted day in, day out. Rain would come on us. I saw a grizzly bear once. That was pretty exciting and scary.
No, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. I have a photo of actually like its butt as it was like walking away, because first off, safety first, bring out your bear spray and then take the photo after. Regardless, I digress. But that experience really taught me a lot about how it can be really scary to meet new people in an uncomfortable setting, and just really immersed me in what it felt like to live. To like, it's the coldest time I've ever been in my life. Fun fact, was in Alaska, and just like the physical endurance along with the mental stress of being in that situation, I think added to a lot of why I like self-development and why I like leadership a lot.
Would you say that was like the most challenging backpacking experience you've had, or was that the first of many?
That was the second of many, but definitely the most grueling and the longest. Yeah. It's actually what motivated me to want to do Outdoor Odyssey at Cornell. I was a guide for 2 years. I came in on a trip for 8 days, and I led two 6-day trips, one of them in the Adirondacks, the other in the Ithaca area. But it's really what introduced me to leading other trips and wanting to help onboard people to what Cornell is like and share that experience with them.
That's really awesome. But that's a crazy icebreaker story. A lot of times when people are introduce yourself, it's like, I'm Ebenezer, I like color blue. That's a heavy story to drop. But that's awesome. And you kind of transitioned beautifully into Cornell with Outdoor Odyssey and freshman year. Actually, when I first freshman year, I forgot what the programs are called that they do, but I was trying to do Outdoor Odyssey, but I was like, I'm not an outdoors guy, or I wasn't then, and I've completely improved, or not improved, but like dove into it, did like skiing and everything for the first time, broke my back, all that. But I kind of strayed away from it. So it's really dope that you kind of took the mantle and kind of helped people assimilate to Cornell. But I'm really curious, like, how was it when you first came to Cornell? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so I actually came into Cornell wanting to study chemical engineering. So one of the first like few weeks of coming to Cornell in that little engineering communication class, had to learn about all the other engineering majors that were out there. Kind of like very thankful actually in hindsight, forced me to look at everything. And that's when I stumbled upon engineering physics as a major. It's not really talked about that much outside because it's a very small program. But that's part of what like alerted me to it actually, is knowing that, hey, I can get to know all of my professors, all of my TAs. There's only like 20 or so other students in any given class. This really speaks to the values I have for what I want from the Cornell education. So it's part of like what pulled me into it. I'd say like a very critical stepping stone. Not realized in the moment, but in hindsight, I mean, it's changed my entire Cornell experience for better or for worse. But I'd say that's one of the key things. And then the other key like start of my freshman journey was taking CS 1110 with Walker White. Shout out to Walker. Really inspired me and like got me involved in computer science. It was my first CS course ever, and it showed me, I guess, the light of a passion that I had to like take on further throughout the years.
Shout out Walker White, big time.
Definitely, definitely. Taking, I think, intro with Walker White, and my experience was a bit challenging at first, but then you kind of get a good sense of what computer science is, and what it expects of you, and you kind of enjoy it at the same time as well. But I wanted to ask you, the course that you mentioned, the communications course, was that something you took, or is it like required by the engineering department? Because it's really nice. I feel like students coming in having that opportunity to explore other majors is something I wish we had in arts and science. I mean, I don't know. I don't think we had that.
Yeah, I don't think we did actually. It's
Oh,
just
wow.
like figure it out yourself type of thing. So
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, it's college wide. Everyone has to take it as a fall freshman, and like they do other things too. Like for AppDev, actually, I came to talk to a couple sessions and tell people about project teams, what AppDev does, convince people to take our courses. So they really like try to give a lot of breadth for students at the beginning.
mm, awesome. But my thing is like, you came in as chemical engineering. So how did you actually go about exploring these different fields? It seems really easy when talked about and simple, exploring fields and kind of exploring all these different classes and ways, and that is a way to go about exploring classes. But is there anything else that you did outside of classes to kind of pick engineering physics? One is extremely small, so I'm curious if you did anything else like meet people or anything like that.
For me, no, I didn't really meet any engineering physics people in the first semester actually, until like through the class. But I remember going to one of the colloquiums. It's like a little thing that AAP brings in like speakers from other universities to talk about cool physics stuff they're doing in their research. I wouldn't attribute like my interest in it just to that, but it was definitely something that like caught my eye.
Got you. Got you. That's awesome. So, kind of breaking out of engineering, chemical engineering, and breaking into engineering physics, it kind of reminds us of the breaking boundaries story kind of that you told us about. And if I could bring it back, I think it was something along the lines of, our majors kind of constraining us in some way, shape, or form in these boundaries that we don't really see, like the majors that you have on your degree, basically being what you're doing in life. And you kind of had a really insightful piece on that. Can you talk a little bit about that, actually?
Yeah, for sure. This is something that I feel it's like a difficult thing to talk about sometimes and like seriously get people to take a risk of like what major that do they want, what like life track do they want, because it's easy and scary. Well, not easy and scary, it's easy to look up to people that you know that you can see is like the most frequent path traveled and feel like you should do that yourself to get that sense of belonging, to have that sense of security that, hey, like I'm probably doing okay if as long as I like check these boxes. And like that's a very natural reaction, especially when a lot of other things are changing in your life, like coming to a new campus, maybe leaving home for the first time. For me, how I've looked at it, and it's something that I've had to continually ask myself, is why do I stay in a major that I'm actually not applying directly to where I see myself working post-graduation? Most of the people who study physics or engineering physics go into research. They care a lot about the physical phenomena they're studying, and they do masters or they do PhD. I'd say I'm one of the few APs that doesn't really want that path. And so I always get asked when I meet new people, like one of the first things I have to talk about with you guys when I met you is, hey, like, why are you doing something that seemingly you don't care about, but you do care about? The biggest thing for me is like, I came to Cornell to study and to learn. Actually, no, I came to Cornell to learn. Studying as an act is like, you only study to learn. I came to Cornell to learn. And when I came, I wanted to know what is the most difficult thing that will help me grow the most and become the person that I want to be when I leave college. You learn by doing incredibly difficult things, and the harder challenges you give yourself are the ones you can grow the most from in an abstract sense. Academically, intellectually, math and physics are the two hardest subjects. I believe is like pretty like normally accepted, even like within engineering too. I'd say math is even harder than physics. So for me, I was like, okay, like what if I tried the hardest major? Like screw it, like what would happen? Could I actually do it? Am I as smart as I think I am? That's a yes and no question. It's always a struggle to decide that. But I had to be very comfortable over the years owning, and that's something one of like I've actually struggled with, is owning the fact that like I'm doing something that most people when they hear engineering physics, they're like, oh, like I can't talk to you. Like I don't understand what you like. Some people are like, wow, that's so cool. Like I don't get it. Can you help me with physics homework or something? And some people are like, oh, that's cool. Like, and then behind the scenes, like, oh, so you think you're better than me? And I'm just like, this is just like what I like doing, and I have fun with it. And so what I encourage like a lot of people to do is really revisit your assumptions on why you're here and why you care about what you say you care about. You don't have to do as a career what you choose to study. Many people end up switching their career paths later on. It's just kind of a fact. And like we're so young, we don't know exactly what we want. So how are you preparing yourself to be the smartest and most capable person you can be? For me, that answer was physics. It's changed how I look at problems. It's changed how I looked at the world in a literal sense, but also in a problem solving sense. And it's one of the happiest decisions I've had. And it's part of the narrative I want to tell for myself when I'm old one day and people will be like, dang, like that kid, like he did some crazy shit. And I want to say that AP was one of the craziest things I've done because it's really pushed me in hard ways.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's a unique way of looking at it. Because from my experience, growing up, I never had a set of, let's say, idea of any career that I wanted to pursue. Right. And, I was seeing all these kids around me saying, I want to be an engineer. I want to be this, I want to be that. And I'm like, how can you know that like so early on? I mean, some people do, right? They know their passions, but I never felt like comfortable kind of limiting myself in one box. And coming into in college, I've my first 2 years underclassmen, I felt this intense pressure of just selecting one, because it always felt like you either have to choose this and that's what you're going to do after graduating and probably for the rest of your life too. But it just kind of felt wrong, right? And I think you make a good point by saying you need to make sure what you came into college for. So if you're here, you're here to grow, right? To challenge yourself, right? So any way of doing that works. If it's taking a hard major like physics, hard classes, but also pursuing other means at the same time, then it works, right? So the general goal being the fact that you're here to grow and challenge yourself. I think it's important to clear that with yourself.
I definitely feel that. It's like it's a big pressure, but more than pressure, I think it's, for me, it was fear. Like I was genuinely when it comes to switching majors, or even dropping something and closing something off and moving on to something new. It's a lot of fear that comes with that, right? And it's literally scary. It's one of the biggest and hardest things that you could do, making hard, tough decisions that can alter your life, definitely, right? And the way that I've seen it too, that you kind of just mentioned, is like it's not a matter of just at the moment how you're feeling, but imagine how you're going to feel in a couple years. Right? Imagine what that's going to look like. And I've found that to be more scary than right now. And so it's like, all right, that's a little bit more scary than this. So it kind of gives me the motivation to jump and switch or whatever the case might be. But kind of talking about motivation and along that line, what are some of the things that motivate you to do the things that you do, and the things that you do are a lot. So I'm really interested in hearing the motivation behind it.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, I want to like loop on to both things that you guys just like brought up, like Muhammad, when you're talking about like this pressure that's trying to like put you down a track and like something about it doesn't feel good. And like Abe, you're talking about like the fear of like, oh, like, is this actually what I want? Like, will I regret this down the line? To me, those things speak to like, to me, like the intuition for me, like seeing kids choose whatever major they choose is like, not like recognizing it's some form of rat race and that you have to get in. And it's like a very FOMO like feeling. Like, oh, if I'm not grinding on my CS classes, I'm going to be out competed by the people who are like taking 3110 freshman fall. Like kids who are just like maybe coming with a lot of experience, whatever it may be. Like if I'm not pushing, if I'm not doing the most, then like I'm falling behind. And I feel like recognizing that is like very important because it's a fear that we all have. And it's like about like trying to resist that as much as possible for me. Yeah. And so for me, like I get motivated by choosing stories that I feel like are not traveled often. I actually feel like it's kind of boring to just do your boilerplate major and not be interesting and not be differentiated. To me, like that scares me. Like when you say fear, like that fear motivates me to be different. Sometimes it's stupid. Like I wear stupid clothes just because I think it looks cool and it's different. My backpack is the only one at Cornell's campus. I can be pretty confident about that. If you've seen it, you would know it's very colorful. But yeah, to loop on your point about motivation, for me, like motivation can be a tricky topic because it's very psychological and you don't always know your own self, which is troubling sometimes.
Definitely.
But I try to find paths that motivation doesn't feel like it's ever an issue. I don't feel like I struggle with motivation entirely with the things I really care about. It's only with things that I don't like. And I notice that sometimes it's class, sometimes it's even doing something on a project team that's maybe more operation centric. Maybe it's like calling my parents. Why am I not motivated to do that? Shouldn't I like love doing that? And like where I've kind of landed on, and this is back into like why do you do a major that's not necessarily tying into all the things you love doing, is that if you feel like you're in a place where you're not wanting to invest a lot of time there, I kind of just give up early and say like, no, like just don't do it. Invest your time where you think is most useful for yourself. It shouldn't be a struggle to be motivated. It should be a struggle, in my opinion, to like stay focused. I get distracted. I don't struggle with motivation. I struggle with distraction. I have things I know I really care about. Being an engineer, like working on my technical skills, trying to do things in entrepreneurship, thinking about new product ideas and how I can try to change the world for the better. Those things I spend my free time doing. I will take a half-hour shower just to think about the next startup idea and then come out all pruned and not know where the time went. What sucks then is I go to my computer after that shower and then I get a text message from a friend saying, hey, do you want to do something tonight? And then I'm like, oh, of course, just because social anxiety or something. And I don't say no when I need to say no. And then suddenly that whole night's lost of productivity and lost off of the tangent I was ready to take on with my creativity. I would say to students who feel like they struggle with motivation, particularly in school, like revisit, like, why don't you just not do it? I mean, seriously, well, like what, like, there are like really a few set of fears that I feel like people like fill into. I don't do school because I don't want to have bad grades. Okay, like one level deeper. I don't want bad grades because my parents will be upset with me, or I'll be upset with myself, or it'll make trying to recruit a lot harder. All of those may be true. But it doesn't change the fact that you don't like it. And you shouldn't have to be doing things you don't like doing. That is to go on living, which is to go on doing things you don't like doing. I really like that phrase. It was taken by a person named of Alan Watts, who was like a Westerner who studied a lot of like Eastern philosophy and religion. And like, I'll repeat it again because I think it's hard to grasp the first time. It's like, most people live life by doing things they don't like doing just to go on living. That is to go on doing things you don't like doing. So it's like, it's all wretched. Like, what's the whole point?
Yeah.
Right? This doing shit we don't like. And I just say like, break the system, only do things you like doing. And if you're not in a place where you feel that way, find a way to change your system, change your formula so that it's on taking you on the path you want.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That was a big jump. That was some fat jump right there. Thank you for that philosophy. Mo, I think you're a big philosophy guy. What do you think about that?
No, it's really interesting. I don't think I've heard this kind of perspective before, and what I really like about it is just a huge shift of perspective, and it kind of you shift it to your own advantage.
Mm-hmm.
But it does take guts, like the things holding us down I like the fears that Connor mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And if you break free from those fears, it's definitely a huge barrier that you just lifted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think and sometimes it's hard identifying what those fears are, right? Like you said, you go a little level deeper, and then you go a little level deeper, and then you understand, like, okay, this is actually what's holding me back from making this decision or from doing this specific thing. And I think, like you said, it takes a little bit of getting to know yourself in that process. Trying to understand, okay, like, I'm motivated by this thing. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. And that's what college is all about, right? Like, it's all about doing things so that you can understand what you like and don't like. And so, in my personal journey, I've seen that. Personally, I struggle with this too, actually. Starting something, right? I'm a great planner. If you could tell me plan this thing, I'll plan the hell out of it, and it will look amazing, right? But then taking that first step to actually doing it is the fear, where that fear comes in, type of thing. And so, what I've started to do now is, like, just try to start in any way, whatever it may be. And I guess it comes from, like, a big revelation to entrepreneurship and like product of, like, the MVP, minimum viable product, idea of just something, anything that kind of works to some degree, right? And so I've kind of taken that perspective. And how do you kind of approach that in terms of doing something, or kind of overcoming that fear? How have you done that in the past?
The best ways that not the best ways, the times I feel like I've had decisions like that, what's kept me through is kind of like a relentless appreciation for, like, the process, or like seeking discomfort, or just feeling the fact that you need to try new things and that you should just do it to enjoy it. It's like you have a crush, you want to ask this person out. You have to you have to feel that and be like, yo, like, I'm scared, like hell, like this is like not going to be easy. But then just say that's exactly why you need to do it. If it feels uncomfortable, you should try. Well, not, this also isn't blanket application. They're definitely uncomfortable. but some appreciation for leaning into the discomfort. And this is something I feel like it's hard to appreciate unless you've had repetition in this. Things like, I feel socially anxious talking to this new group of people because I've never met any of them. You have to kind of, like, and then maybe this is leaning a little bit on extroversion on accident, but, like, just push yourself. You have to try. And life's all about, like, trying and experimenting for yourself. If you don't do anything, like, what's the point of living? You're just walking through and eating food and pooping it. Like, what's going on? You have to try things, right? And that's the whole point. At least that's what I tell myself, and that's how I feel more comfortable in just saying, hey, this may suck. I may get hurt. I may whatever, waste my time. But I think I'm trying it, so in a more meta sense, I'm not wasting my time, if I can appreciate that.
Yeah, I know. This also goes back to the backpacking story you told, because we learn a lot from uncomfortable situations. Because if it's like the usual environment we're in, we're just gonna revert back to, like, usual habits, usual ways of dealing with them. But, like, being in these uncomfortable situations that we haven't dealt with will require us to, like, take out, like, an untapped potential, something that we don't know, and we have to come up on the spot, right? So you'll grow from it.
Just for the listeners, I feel like we're hitting a contradiction that I want to explain, where I first said don't do things you don't like doing, and now we're paradoxically saying don't do things you're uncomfortable with. And I want to, like, elaborate a little bit on that because it's important, which is, lean into discomfort when you're trying new things. This is at least how I think about it. Lean into discomfort when you're trying new things. But for decisions that are going to be long lasting, they're investments into how you define your character and how you define what you can bring to the world. Take time to critically think about it and invest only in the things that you think are moving you in the right direction. Invest meaning more of like a long-term investment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
This kind of makes me think about how you and I met, of like leaning into discomfort and thinking a little bit more about the future and what you are interested in. And from our initial conversation, or actually to kind of paint the picture of how we met, Conner is part of the Kessler Fellow program at Cornell. And I had the opportunity to join that team of people and explore the Kessler Fellow program. Actually, Conner, do you want to go ahead and take the floor and kind of explain what the Kessler Fellows is?
Yeah, for sure. So the Kessler Fellowship is a program funded by Andy Kessler. He was like an entrepreneur, made a lot of money, wanted to give Cornell something to fund people who had entrepreneurial interests. And so what the program is about is giving previously just people in the College of Engineering, now people of all colleges, an opportunity to work at a startup for the summer. And they try to help you with that by giving you a stipend. So when you come to startups and like not apply to them, but like talk to them, one that you really like, you can say, hey, I go to Cornell. I think I may be pretty smart. I can help you out. Did I mention I'm free? Will you please take me onto the team and can I learn from you and get mentorship from you? And that's kind of like the value exchange that the program aims to provide. And so Kessler Fellows program is a cohort. It's just a group of people, about a dozen to 2 dozen people. This year they went on the high side. It seems like they changed it a little bit, but it's all about giving people opportunities to pursue the life that they want to pursue. I really vibe and like resonate with Kessler's mission about just, again, spend time on things you want to spend time on. Choose a path that is fit for you and that you can design for yourself, and that's not designed for the lowest common denominator person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll dive more into Kessler Fellows and your experience there. But what I really wanted to talk about was when I came to you. So I came to Conner for advice in navigating a choice that I had with Kessler Fellows and another opportunity. And I was literally torn apart in terms of how should I look at this, and what is the way I should approach this. And that was a big moment of fear and a big moment of I'm trying to make a decision that kind of decides the trajectory of my life and where I go next. And so the advice that you gave me wasn't like do this or do that. It was rather think about what you want to do in the fullest and in the biggest way. And I try to do that, right? I try to plan out my goals 5 years ahead and kind of break that down in a way. But the way that you kind of you kind of told me it, especially in when we ended the conversation, and like you said, like I have two things to tell you. One is this, and the last one was I don't remember exactly how it was, but it kind of pushed me a little further to do it on a deeper level, right? And so I think that's something also people don't really do. Think really deeply about the future, and who they want to be in the future and how they get to the future. And I think the way that you go about doing it and the path that you've chosen is extremely different from anyone that I know at Cornell at the moment. And I think our previous mentors kind of align, Jaron and people like that, and they kind of take on this perspective and mindset too. But I'd love it if you could share that approach with the audience of like making these tough decisions that you kind of advised me to take.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I feel like the hardest thing, or not the hardest thing, but I feel like sometimes you just need a guiding hand to think deeper about yourself. I think it's easy to avoid like digging. Like it seems like, oh, like that's just kind of like a therapy kind of thing. Or it's okay if I'm just like moving autonomously. I forget if I use this phrase with you, Abe, but I like the phrase like living with intention. Intentionality is a big word I like, where are you caught? Like we're all smart enough. Like at least come on, like we can think critically about what we want, what makes sense, and give us some logic to break down our assumptions and if they're like valid or not, if they're the right kinds of assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I shared with you then and what I want to share with like everybody is that revisit what, like, physics, we use the term like first principles sometimes, like Newton's third law, for example, just like, right, like laws that like support nature. Like, what are the laws that support you? What do you value? For me, that was, I care a lot about like relentless self-development. I like learning a lot. I like, and in turn, I value curiosity a lot. And so for you, like, I asked, like, what do you actually value? What do you want to get out of your summer? What do you want to get out of your time at either location? And so for students, I would encourage to ask, what do you want to get out of your major? What do you want to get out of even your friends? Get out of maybe is too like crude of a word, but how do you want to enjoy the life that you're given? And just think a lot. For me, I would spend some hours, more so in the earlier years of Cornell. I would go to like a room with a big blackboard, and I would just write a bunch of stuff on the board of what I was thinking, what I was feeling. It was honestly kind of like a journaling like process of how I thought about what I valued and what I wanted. And then start with those assumptions and then build off of that and look at the world and see what opportunities out there match what I want for myself. And do that at Cornell in particular, because there's so many opportunities. There's so many organizations to join, clubs to partake in, classes to take, people to talk to who can like help you along discovering parts of yourself that you think would be cool. Yeah, and that's kind of like how I think about my life decisions. I can talk more about that with like some of the other big things I've had to do in my time, but the biggest thing is just you have to take the time and you have to take the effort and really dig into what you like and why being the most important part of this.
So I guess we can talk about how you found those opportunities and how you went and took those opportunities to explore the different things that you wanted to do with intention, right? We mentioned Kessler Fellows, and that's like your passion for entrepreneurship and stuff. But you're also involved in AppDev. Can you tell us about your experience with AppDev, how you found AppDev, and all of that?
Yeah, for sure. First thing I want to say is Cornell AppDev changed my life, just as Cornell changed my life. I found AppDev honestly by luck. I used Eatery and Ithaca Transit, which are both made by the team, but I never really connected like, oh, these are students and oh, they happen to teach courses and want to help other people learn what it's like to build applications. So a friend of mine said, hey, let's take an iOS development course. Let's take a backend development course. And I was like, I called it this freshman spring. I actually called it the semester of send, regardless of what you want to say about that phrase. I was just like, try all the things.
Nice.
Like someone said, hey, do you want to do X? I was like, okay, send it. Let's give it a shot. And so I took those 2 extra courses. It's the most credits I've ever taken at my time at Cornell too. That was painful, but it introduced me to AppDev, and I got to learn how to apply what I learned in CS 11, 10 the previous semester. I built something that was functional. It was so fun. Like when I did it and I was debugging and I spent 5 hours on something that had no contribution to my GPA, that was only done just for the sake of learning and for fun. And that's when I connected like, hey, this is something I want to do. So the opportunity I saw was with really looking up to like these course instructors and people who are helping me. And I'm like, wow, like these kids are like smart and like they know stuff other than just A, B, C, or D on a test. Like they can build something that matters. They built this app I use every day. I want to be like that. And I recognize like, hey, like this is someone I look up to. I want to try to emulate them. I think that would be a good idea to start with. And I want to start by joining Cornell AppDev. For engineers and people in CIS, I would recommend project teams is like the best place to start for trying to build. Actually, not the best place to start, but a place that an environment that'll give you more than if you do it alone. Because doing alone is always an option, but it's less fun that way.
For those listening and anyone in CS interested in joining AppDev, a question we can ask you, Conner, is what's the process of applying to AppDev, joining? How does that look like? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, for sure. AppDev is probably more approachable than you think. The people on it like really care about new members and really care about educating and trying to help other people find a passion in app development. It's why we teach courses. It's why we care to do like workshops and things like that. So the first thing is like, don't be scared to talk to us. I'd say in general, also just like with all project teams and opportunities on campus, like try to talk to people. And if you talk to them, you'll probably learn some more insight and they'll probably like you more too. But as like recommendations specifically for AppDev, at least in what we look for and what we value, it's just people who like building things, people who take initiative and demonstrate to us that like you actually care about what we say we believe in, which is like building apps to help people, teaching courses to help people, and create a nicer Cornell community for everyone. And so you can pretty quickly tell who actually feels that and who is just saying the same words, but doesn't have the background for it. They may not everyone has the experience to showcase to us, but everyone has the time to showcase that experience to us. And what I mean by that is, say you want to join AppDev, you're saying, hey, I want to put in about 10 hours a week with these other people to build some apps and teach some courses. Assume right now that you're on AppDev. That's the time allotted for this kind of activity that you want for yourself. Before AppDev, even like the first few weeks of school, before the application start, put in those same 10 hours a week and see how it feels. But put in those 10 hours on your own time to see, let me just prepare for the interview. What if I spent 20 hours preparing my application for AppDev? That's time you would have already expected to spend if you're on the team. And those 20 hours will probably give you a really high chance of getting on, because there's only so many things we look for, especially for freshmen. Because like the bar is really low. It's like, if you haven't taken the course, why are you not taking the course right now? And just, if you can take the course and apply to get on the team at the same time. For reference, AppDev teaches courses every semester to teach people the same skills that we look for people to take on the team. And so put in, like, the course only takes 4 hours a week. Enroll in it now, learn like whatever type of development or design you're interested in. And if you join the team, evaluate if like you still want to stay in the course, because now you have this network of people who want to help you. Yeah, so just start by showing you care, and you show you care by showing how you invest your time, and that when you invest your time, you'll have things to show for it that are tangible. You'll have an app to show for it if you take the course. You'll have things to talk about, share things that you've learned, and share how you think about problems when we ask you how you think about problems.
You know, I think what you just said is also really important in terms of assessing if you're a fit for yourself, like assessing if that's something you want to do, if that's something of interest to you, learning about the people that are there, and, you know, kind of learning about just trying to figure out if this is a fit for yourself, right? So in a way, like, it's not always a matter of I'm trying to get in and I'm trying to do this, and, you know, this is an amazing opportunity for myself and I'm trying to explore this in any way or shape or form. But sometimes also it's a process of trying to figure out, you know, is this for me? Is this something I'm interested in? And so what you said kind of goes along the lines of like putting yourself literally in that position to see, is this something I want to do, before even committing to the project team. Like talking to the people, figuring out if this group of people is the people that you vibe with, even before applying. And so I think that's a big thing. And that can apply to a lot of things above and beyond AppDev too. Just literally putting yourself in the position to learn and to understand from a place where you're actually in that space and environment. So Connor, you know, we've been talking a lot about Cornell, a lot about things at Cornell to explore, to, you know, find your interest and dive deep into the environment here. But let's talk a little bit about after Cornell, and specifically around the ideas of like professional development. You know, how do you approach that? What are some of the things that you've done in the past and currently do to kind of build yourself in that way?
For professional development, I guess in the context of my experience for like tech, entrepreneurship, like the two most important things to me are like build things and talk to people, talk to interesting people that excite you and inspire you. Project teams, again, I'll plug, they're one of the best ways to do both of these things at the same time. It's all about building, it's all about applying your knowledge, and it's all about a community of people of varying years and expertise to help you in your journey too. And then when you're an old person like me, you can help give back into that same environment that helped foster your own growth. But internships would probably be like the hottest topic for like actually anyone. All students is like the best way to get like more professional experience and have something to help you even get more professional experiences down the line. And to that, I would have the same advice: build things and talk to people. For an internship, they want to show, just like a project team like AppDev wants you to show as an applicant, do you really care about what we do? Do you have some experience and like expertise that you can lean on, so that we don't have to teach you everything that you need to know? We expect to teach you a lot of what you need to know to be productive for us, but we can't do everything. So take interning at a tech company. If again, just boilerplate, assume you're like a CS student, info student, and you want to go like to Facebook. Actually, let's take away the company. You want to get an internship. And the internship is going to be great because you're going to build for a whole summer and you're going to talk to a lot of people who are older than you, who have way more experience than you, and that you can learn from. Two key axioms again. How to find an internship. The first internship is the hardest, which is both the good news and the bad news. It's great because once you get it, you can relax a little bit, but it sucks when you're going through it because you're young, so you still don't really know what's going on. You may not even know if this is the right path for you, and then just everyone's hustling at the same time. And I know, like, at least for me, there was a lot of stress surrounding internships because I definitely got mine like really, really late. Like people who get their internships in the fall semester, maybe even just after coming back to Cornell when things open up. Ah, bless those kids. I mean, that's so lucky. Not just, I won't say lucky, but like they should really appreciate that because I know for myself and other people, it just adds a lot of stress to have to keep applying places and such. For me, one of the things I value about entrepreneurship, and this ties into internships, is it's all about creating your own opportunities. And I feel like you kind of have to take on some form of that philosophy for advocating for yourself in an internship. A lot of people will flock to like big companies, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Apple, whatever, because they have lots of opportunities and they have a lot of clout associated with them. Good reasons to go to a company. But a lot of people kind of don't see the other half, actually, maybe even majority of positions out there, which are ones you create for yourself. And they're hard to see because they're not on Wikipedia or LinkedIn or Indeed.com, whatever you're looking for. And for me, my first internship was with a startup. And that's what I like to advocate people to like start acting with. That and probably university specific programs. Big companies have university specific programs for younger students. I know Google has one. I forgot what it's called now. I think it's called Google Step. I know Facebook has one, FBU, Facebook University. Those are good options for sure, but consider startup route more. My first connection actually was through AppDev. That's how I got lucky, and that's why that network. Part of that reason the network was so valuable for me is it connected me to my first startup, which was with Response, a YC-backed company now. At the time, we were just building stuff out the wazoo, and we didn't really know what we were doing. But hey, we got some investment. We got into the program, and now they're taking the team to like newer and greater heights. But internships, I seriously like. I don't want to labor on the same points, but like tangible advice I would have for people in tech who want to get experience in software engineering or data science is to one, talk to older people who have been through it before. Even if you're not on a project team, go to ACSU. Their whole spiel is an association for people in computer science. Talk to older people about what it's like to interview, how you can prepare, because these are like all these random things you don't know until you do it for the first time. Go through the basic things of how you talk at an interview. What are basic practices? What is lead code? What does it mean to know an algorithm or a linked list? Is this even important? Maybe, maybe not. But go through those basic steps. Talk to people, learn how to do it. And then when you find a company, like talk to the people at the company. Especially for a startup, that's so easy to start with, where it's just a conversation. Pull up on LinkedIn. Say, hey, I think you're a cool company. I don't know what you do really behind the scenes, but I'd really like to learn. I'm a student. I think what you're doing is cool. Again, please talk to me. Let's do a half-hour chat. Here's my Calendly link. Make it dumb easy for them. And then after that conversation, say, hey, like, I think I'd really like to work with you. Do you think me interning with you would be a possibility, paid or unpaid, even if you're willing to do that? And you start with relationships. Relationships matter a lot. Yeah, I think that's a theme you'll hear more as you get older. Is like relationships matter. I can't stand this phrase because I feel like it comes from the hotel school. Your net worth is your network or whatever. That whole thing. Like, it's kind of like a yes, but please don't say it that way. You're making me feel weird. But
definitely, and I can definitely attest to the startup aspect of things. You know, startups are looking for people, literally like searching everywhere, trying to find someone to work with. And going to school like Cornell, there's a lot of startups. eLab is a big resource actually, so that might be a great point for people to start. eLab is the startup accelerator incubator here at Cornell for university related or student led startups, both from graduate students and underclassmen. My startup is currently an eLab, and we never stop looking for people to work with, and so it not only gives you the opportunity to learn, but it's pretty easy. There's people that you go to school with, people that know what Cornell is, have gone to the same school, have the same professors, and you probably have connections to them too. So it makes it a lot more easier and approachable. Um, but yeah, that's a big thing that students should definitely look into. And my other thing is talking to people, right? And I think you mentioned last time something extremely incredible about mentors. You have a mentor that you've been consistently speaking with for 9 months every week, right? And that itself is crazy. That's amazing. Can you talk about how you found that mentor, what that looked like, how you built that connection and relationship with them? I think that would be an amazing piece for people listening.
Yeah. So his name is Ahmed. He's the CEO of his own company called Narrator.ai is their website. And I found him through the Kessler Fellowship because he actually used to be a fellow. Fun fact, I'm kind of jealous of him for this, but he did his Kessler Fellowship with WeWork when there were around 20
Yo.
Yeah. So really crazy stuff. Yeah. But the only reason I found him is because I talked to people. I talked to some older Kessler fellows that I was friends with, actually some of the co-founders of Response where I interned. And they said, hey, this guy, Ahmed, he came in and gave a talk to our cohort when we were fellows. And we think you should talk to him because we think you'd like him basically. And I was like, okay. So I went to LinkedIn and I said, I want to talk to this person. I just pulled up on the LinkedIn DMs. Really, you just do not underestimate the power of the LinkedIn DM. Because for me, it changed like a big portion of like that summer. And like it's changed a lot of how I think now. Fortunately, he responded. I said, hey, I'm a Kessler Fellow. I noticed you're also a Kessler Fellow. And I'm kind of in a mode where I'm looking for advice on what I want to do for my summer. Could you please like help me out and like give me some time? And he said, yeah, of course. I love to give back to the Kessler Fellow program. And we met. He was talking, and one thing he was going on about was he really doesn't like the program, actually, or rather, he doesn't like a lot of the fellows and how they use the program. In that, for more context, like I said earlier, you get money to go to fund you, so you can go to any startup you basically want, assuming that they want to take you, which hopefully 9 times out of 10 is a good thing. It usually works out. For me, it worked out, at least for all the people in my cohort, it also worked out. But what he said is he dumped a bunch of advice about how to do better on the Kessler Fellowship. And he said, almost in like maybe like a pessimistic way, like, I always give this advice, and you know what? Like, not everyone takes it. And it makes me like so sad and frustrated sometimes because I really think if people did this and like saw it the same way, that they would change their lives to the better. And that, people like I offer my time and people are like, oh yeah, like I'll like chat with you later. And then like they never message me again. For me, when I heard that, like I saw an opportunity. And that like was like it jumped out, and that was a nudge where I was like, I'm uncomfortable to ask him to talk to me again, but he just said he wished more people talked to him. And I was like, this is pulling me in an uncomfortable direction, but I trust that it's what makes sense right now. And immediately the next thing I said when he was done was like, hey, like you say people don't talk to you, like I'd love to chat with you again. How about we make this a weekly thing? And he said, of course. And I was like, let's sign the paperwork. Let's go. Yeah, and that's how it started. And every week we meet on Mondays. Some days we have to like cancel. He's a CEO of his own company, so he's way busier than I. But for 9 months straight now, it's crazy. It's been since May of last year. And it's been a wild ride, and he's really changed my perspective on product, engineering, leadership, entrepreneurship, and he's been like one of the biggest reasons why I'm where I am right now. Again, back to the whole thing of like you have to talk to people, especially if they're older than you, more experienced than you, and they have insights that you feel like you could resonate with and you just are curious about. When you feel like you're getting pulled towards a particular person, company, team, like discipline, whatever, like listen to that. I felt pulled by Ahmed when I talked to him because I thought I was hearing a lot of things that I haven't heard before, but I felt like I agreed with. And I was like, and then he opened up an opportunity for me. And then you have to recognize that and just let yourself to be pulled by that. And then if you do, hopefully good things happen. I know it did for me.
you mentioned about being at first being uncomfortable, and he also mentioned about how a lot of people tell him that they're gonna chat with him, but they don't. Well, like, what do you guys think is holding like people, will hold people back from maintaining these talks? Is it because we're thinking, maybe that person is not comfortable with talking to me, or is it just simply uncomfortable talking to people? Um, what do you guys think?
I don't know. I feel like if you've had one conversation, it wouldn't be that you're uncomfortable unless you said something that made you feel uncomfortable
Mm,
or like a person. I feel like it's more of a, my first guess would be that like, I guess people didn't really see the value in whatever he was saying, or they didn't see it the same way, or they didn't feel like it was going to be worthwhile. I'm not sure it's really like an anxiety related thing, but
mhm,
just like this isn't worth it for me.
mhm. Yeah, I think it's like yeah, when it comes to talking to older people and exploring that, a lot of people do that really well, especially at Cornell. You know, really career centered and chasing after opportunities. But something might be like simply like not seeing a value in it, like kind of said.
Not seeing the full extent. You might recognize that there's value in it, but
Yeah,
you don't know how much helpful it's going to be. Like,
exactly.
yeah.
And like Connor said, the first conversation should definitely make that, sure, or disprove that in general.
Okay. So Connor, you've had an interesting path so far, really unique. And now as a senior, we start thinking about after college and beyond, and it's as a ex president of AppDev, well versed in CS. People would think that you would be um, working or trying to get a job at the prestigious, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, but your objective is and what you want to do is really different. It's a different approach, unique. And can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I guess where it starts for me is again revisiting your assumptions. So we can do a little thought exercise. What are the assumptions that I have and that I would imagine people who want that kind of life or experience would have for themselves? First thing for me is like I really am adamant about like trying to not care what other people think about you, like as much as possible. You need a little bit just to fit with social norms, of course, but for the most part, like really try to be comfortable in your own skin. Be comfortable with what you say you
Mhm,
like, what you don't like, and what you want to do for yourself.
mhm,
So that's step one. Assumption two is that I really value challenges that make me feel like almost that like I'm worthy of doing something good in the world. I don't know. It's like you really have to try hard. Like full like no cap. Like I've come from such a great background. Like my parents, we lived in the Bay Area. Like I had two parents who worked full time. Like finances were never a consideration for me. I'm able to afford a Cornell education. I have two loving parents. I sorry to say that again, but really like there's so many things I've been like benefited from, no merit to my own, and that in all honesty, going to Google, Apple, Microsoft, whatever it may be, I don't see it as like a significant enough of a challenge. Um, that's like full stop. How I see it really is it's not big enough for me. I want something that says, hey, the people who should be changing the world, not should be, but the people who have the most opportunity to change the world are those who have come from good backgrounds, who can take big risks with their life,
Good
who can
point.
say, I want to forego a like competitive, consistent salary to chase something that maybe nothing, probably is nothing. People who like me, like other many other Cornell students. Um, so let's look back at Google and Microsoft then. Why would I not want that? We'll start with like their like the differential effort from if I've like started here and Google, Apple, Microsoft is maybe like 2 inches above my hand. For a podcast, say it's like a 10-inch bar, and then 2 inches above is Google, Apple, Fang, whatever you want to call it. Like it's a 2 inch diff. I just have to grind leak code. I just have to pass classes.
Yeah.
I have to suck up to some interviewers, and I'll probably be good enough. I'm smart enough. I passed the like intelligence bar, like probably everyone else at Cornell. Take someone who hasn't had all those opportunities, who's like struggling, like they need whatever, like they see like Google, Apple, Microsoft, whatever, like holy shit, like that would change my family's life. Like that's something I need. I need to support other people. That's not me. Like for them, like that diff is like huge. It's like there's a lot of effort. Maybe I came from a less advantaged background. I didn't take CS in high school. I just transitioned into CS as a freaking sophomore. Whatever it may be, like that diff is massive. And that like is impressive. Like those stories, when I hear that, I'm like, yes, like go you, like go for it. And so it's not like a big tech is bad, like go small companies. It's just like find the challenge that you feel motivates you. For me, that's just not the challenge that motivates me. And it's also, so that's like one class of ways to think about it. The other is my first assumption. I reversed the order, I apologize. But like some people choose FANG for the cloud, right? For me, I'm like, I don't care if you think I'm smart because of FANG. I want you to think I'm smart because when I talk to you, you're like, shit, this kid is smart. Like, I want that kind of clout. I want that clout where I'm on a podcast and talking and someone's like, dang, I want to meet this kid. Not the, I go to Facebook, meet me because I go to Facebook. Like, no. Like, and I've been able to separate myself from that because I just decided from the get-go, like, I don't care what you think of me. I'm just going to do what I think is important for myself.
You know, I think that's a lot of people say that, right? A lot of people say, I don't care about what you think about, but like what people think about me. I do this, I do that, but not a lot of people live it. And so it was awesome kind of seeing how committed you are to that and really living it, because you literally live it. For anyone that's kind of doubting that, trust me, I've seen it. And it's, you know, it's really awesome how you pointed out that it's not the same field for everyone, right? The challenge for you is not the same as it would be for someone else, and so you're choosing to do something else. And so, you know, even seeing this and Connor's perspective, I think people should not discount what you prefaced it with, is that this is a challenge that's big for you, what you consider to be big for you, and that challenge is different for everyone. But you know, really awesome what you're doing, and really excited to see what you bring to the world. And I hope to be part of that some way, shape, or form in the future. But yeah.
Thanks, Abe. It's been a good ride.
Awesome conversation. Like I've learned a lot from this conversation just right now, and I'm sure a lot of people listening, especially underclassmen, will definitely benefit from this. Conner, like, truly appreciate it, bro.
I got you. One thing, sorry to keep going back.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify a point, because I know the big tech or no big tech is like, well, like, do you have to go to this direction? I feel like it's a hot topic. I'm not saying if you want to go big tech that you're not challenging yourself enough, or that your aspirations are low, or that it's too easy, because it's definitely not easy. It's so hard to get in. If you look at just by the numbers, it's so hard, but
yeah,
it's also like, is it the right kind of hard? I think is the nuance. For me, from what I've seen in my friends who have gone to big tech and what they put in to get there, it's doing work like understanding your algorithm. Actually, that's good for just being smart. Understanding your algorithms. I recommend that to anyone, but more so like the level of detail and attention towards specifically lead coding, to practicing interviewing. There are many things you can appreciate about interview skills, like how you articulate yourself, how you talk about problems, and how you communicate. Those are great to work on in general. But for me, like the level of detail I want to like focus in time, I want to focus on those is so small compared to what I actually value. I want to build things. I want to try to do more than just engineering. I want to do products and talk to people and be involved with marketing and decisions outside the sphere of what I know in class. And to me, those big tech opportunities don't provide that level of breadth, and entrepreneurship does, because it's whatever you want it to be. It's what you make it. And so it's a path that's fit for some people, not for me. Encourage you to just think about it a little bit more and really separate, do I want this because I want this, or do I want this because people just talk about it? Same would go for entrepreneurship, because there's a lot of fake buzz around it too. Really, like there are fake entrepreneurs
Yeah,
out there. There are
definitely.
LinkedIn hype beasts, whatever you want to say. But if I actually talk to you and you can explain to me about like why you care about these things, you know, it rings true. And more important than just talking, like you do stuff. Do you build? Do you talk to people? Are you trying to like do something that's novel?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurship is not, it's not a fabulous word, you know. From my experience, it's hell. That's the way I can describe it, right? In terms of the things that you have to put up and do and actually execute, and the way that you have to like go about doing things. It's not all fancy daisy, oh, entrepreneurship, yeah, that's cool. It's really, it's like most of the time you're banging your head on the table, like, oh my God. And so that itself is in itself a big challenge. And like Connor said, definitely take that into account. But if anyone is out there and anyone is interested in entrepreneurship, tech, CS, app dev, philosophy, more vibes with the gems that Connor just dropped today. Connor, how can people get in touch with you? Maybe meet with you in person. I don't know if that's possible or not, but just contact you in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, the best way would probably be email. You can find my net ID on your own, but I'll help you out. It's a CLS364. But otherwise, you can always try to pull up on my LinkedIn DMs. I
the
don't check
LinkedIn
them
DMs
off,
always
but
work, right?
if you pull up, I will respond. I can guarantee you that. Except that one time I didn't respond to A. You had to email me instead because I didn't check LinkedIn. But seriously, I'd like anyone who wants to talk to me, like connect on anything, like really like to speak to people. I love talking to younger people because they have so much energy that I don't have anymore.
Mhm.
But yeah.